In this video, we'll talk about circles. So let's look at some definitions and some information at the top. Definition, it says a circle is a set of points in the xy plane that are a fixed distance that we call r from a fixed point, hk. The fixed distance r is called the radius of the circle, and the fixed point hk is called the center of the circle. So if I talk about this circle in the xy plane, if this is the center, that would be the point hk, and its distance to another point over here, xy, we call r, the radius. So the standard form of an equation of a circle with the radius r and center hk is this, and you need to memorize this. X minus h quantity squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And you might notice this is similar to the Pythagorean theorem because that's where it actually comes from. I'm not going to show you the derivation here, but it does. The standard form of an equation of a circle of radius r whose center is at the origin. Now this one is not at the origin, but if I had, let me do it in a different color, a circle whose center was here, like that little circle right there, that's what we're talking about, then the h and the k would be 0 and they would fall out of that equation, and you would just have x squared plus y squared equals r squared. If the radius of a circle is 1, the circle whose center is at the origin is called the unit circle, and it has an equation of x squared plus y squared equals 1. And if you take pre-calculus, you'll be doing a lot more talking about the unit circle. So let's just look how this works. It says write the standard form of the equation of the circle with radius 5, so r is 5, and its center is here. So this is h and k, and you have to be careful because the standard form, remember, is up here. It's x take away the h. So here it's going to be x take away -3 squared plus y take away 6 squared equals 5 squared. Cleaning that up, you notice those two negatives. It's going to become x plus 3 squared plus y minus 6 squared equals 25. So this is what you end up with. Do not FOIL that out. We're not going to be doing that. You'll do that in another course. Notice, it turns out that whatever your h and k are, you're going to see the opposite signs in the final equation. So knowing that, let's look at an equation and identify the center and the radius. So here, for the center of this circle, remember I said it's going to be the opposite. So this is going to be a +3, and this is going to be a +2 because I subtracted a +3. That's why it's x minus 3, and I subtracted a +2, and then square root of 25 is 5. Because remember that radius got squared. Here, the center on this one is 3, but since this is a plus, it had to have been a -1 because it was minus a -1, which would give you the +1. And the radius here is the square root of 5. You always have to take the square root of what you see in that equation. For this one, the only way the x would be by itself is if the center, the x part, was at 0, and then here the y part is at -3, and square root of 9, r equals 3. So you need to be able to go from this in this direction where I give you the radius and the hk and you put it together, or I give you the equation and you pull out the center and the radius. It's not very difficult. It says sketch a graph of the equation x squared plus y squared equals 4. Well, what do I know? I know that if it's just x squared plus y squared and there's nothing in parentheses, that center is at 0, 0. So there we go. And I know if this is a 4, that means the radius is square root of 4. So that means the radius is 2. So it's very hard to sketch this, but notice what I'm doing. I am marking the radius here and here and here, and here, and then all I have to do is just kind of fill in by sort of rounding that out, and it's harder to do than it is to say. I didn't exactly get it, but I'm close. That is basically what that circle would look like. All right, next page. Let's look at this one. It says graph the equation x plus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 16. So again, we know that our center is the point HK. In this case, it is not 3, negative 2. Remember, it's going to be the opposite, so it's negative 3, 2. And I know that the radius is the square root of 16 is 4. Now this is a little bit harder to do. So looking over at my coordinate plane, I have the center is at negative 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So there's the center, and the radius is 4. So I have to go 4 in the horizontal and the vertical directions. You can't do it diagonally because that's not equal to 1. So 1, 2, 3. So it goes over to here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes to here. From the center here, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. It touches there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just like on the page before, we just have to sort of sketch it out by rounding this out a little bit the best you can. It's not going to be exact. It says, let's look at how we would do this in a graphing calculator. It would be difficult, and I think maybe I'm going to take that back and say I don't want to do that here. You would end up having to solve for y in this equation, which is doable. All right, let's just do it. I said I wasn't, but we're going to, because some of you are going to be curious about this, so you can check yourself. To solve for y, I'm first going to subtract this from both sides, and that gives me y minus 2 squared equals, whoops, that was supposed to be 16. 16 minus x plus 3 squared. Now, contrary to popular belief, we are not going to FOIL that out. We're going to take the square root of both sides, and that's going to give us y minus 2 equals square root of 16 minus x plus 3 squared. You can't pull out a 4 because there's a minus here. It's not times. I'm going to add a 2 to both sides. Y equals, I can't add the 2 in under the radical. It goes out front, and then it's going to be plus or minus, because that should have been plus or minus, the square root of 16 minus x plus 3 squared. So how would you graph that in your graphing calculator? You would put in two equations. Y sub 1 equals 2 plus square root of 16 minus x plus 3 squared, and y sub 2 equals 2 minus square root of 16 minus x plus 3 squared. Get that graphed, and then you would have to hit your zoom square to make sure it's a circle and not an oval.